All right, we are live. Welcome, everybody. This is another episode of Studio 6 Paranormal Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Hill, with my co host, Shane Feek. And we have a special guest tonight, Mike Ricksecker. I really, that book that you had just, the book of about shadow people was, that's something that I'm really going to have to get. I really saw you've written quite a few books, actually. So you're an author, TV personality. I mean, you're kind of like all over the place. I mean, people know who you are, and and people are think highly of you. And I'm blessed to have you on the show. I can't wait to get into some of the things to talk about the shadow people. You're also a researcher, paranormal investigator, kind of just do it all. So, welcome. Thank you for being on the show, and thank you for agreeing to be on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jay and Shane. Absolutely happy to be here and talk with you about whatever.
Yeah. We kind of just, like I said, like Shane said, we kind of just bounce back and forth, and just it's pretty light. We don't try to get too serious topics, but I mean sometimes we do. But it's just we just kind of keep it just kind of chill. So the first question, actually, I wanted to ask you is, what made you get into the whole aspect of like researching shadow people?
Yeah, so that goes all the way back to an experience I had, and I've seen a number of shadow entities throughout my life, especially while investigating the paranormal. But it goes all the way back to when I was about 8 years old. Woke up in the middle of the night, and there was this tall, dark figure standing in the corner of my room. Now, I had no idea about shadow people, shadow entities, anything like that at that time. I just thought there was an intruder in the room, and he was about to kill me. I figured I had enough time to gasp, and that was it. I was a goner,
Right.
But I'm still alive to tell the tale, which is great. And but it did do something very unusual that it was even more frightening at that time. It approached my bed, and I'm trying to scream. My mouth opens up. I'm just too terrified. Nothing's coming out of my mouth. He leans over. I'm staring up into this black face. There's like no eyes, no nose, no mouth, nothing. And it takes me by the wrists, crosses my arms across my body like that, and then runs off down the hall, of all places, into a closet. So by that point, I found my voice, found my legs, ran off to my parents' bedroom screaming. They were trying to calm me down, console me, trying to tell me that I just had a bad dream, but I'd been awake for this whole thing. So fast forward 5 years, we moved out of that house, and I would never call that a haunted house. This was like one thing that happened. We lived there for 10 years, and that was like the one incident. There may have been a second, but it was not a haunted house. We moved into another house, moved from Massachusetts to Ohio, and as I'm unpacking boxes and putting things away in this house, I keep seeing this figure standing in my doorway, and I would turn and look, and he'd go running off down the hall. And this was a bit of a different type of an entity, still shadowy in nature, but where the other one was very, very solid, this one was more translucent, and he kept running off anytime I'd look at him. So this happened for a number of days. It happened several times. So finally, I'm 13 years old, and I don't know what my mom may have been thinking at the time about my maturity level, but I decided to ask her about it. And instead of, like when I was a little kid, she tried to tell me it was just a bad dream or whatever. She told me that she had actually seen this thing too. So
cool.
It's like, okay, that's good. So, affirmation from mom that I'm not crazy. But she did it in such but she did it in such a disarming, nonchalant manner that it was like, okay, so mom's not afraid of this thing. She has seen it too. So I guess there's no reason for me to be afraid of it. And it wasn't doing anything, really disconcerting other than looking in my room and then running. So I decided to get playful with the thing. I started calling him Tom, like Peeping Tom. And anytime I'd see him, I'd say, "Hi, Tom," and he'd running off down the hall. That activity lasted for about 3-4 months, subsided. Wow. And I just chalked it up to something that was there. was curious about the new family moving in, deemed we were okay, and he just went about its business. And so those were the first two incidents that really kind of got me interested in this field. That and along the way, I was reading Hans Holzer, so that kind of helped too.
Okay. So I have a question then. You seem to have done a lot of research on the shadow people. Do you have any kind of, reasonable scientific thought as to what they're made of, where they come from? I mean, obviously there's not concrete stuff that you can come up with, but
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, it really depends on the type of shadow that you're talking about. There's a lot of different kinds.
there's
Um,
categories then?
yeah, and that's like the whole first part of my book is like types
Okay,
of
yeah, I
shadows.
haven't
So
read the
kind of
book.
breaking it. Yeah, that's okay. Kind of breaking it down by first by appearance. Humanoid figure, Hat Man, hooded figures, Miss Wisps, the Crawler. All these sorts of different things, and then I break it down later on into okay, so what exactly are these things? Well, some of them are human spirits that can't fully manifest as an apparition. I've actually even seen one that started off as a shadow. There were 5 of us that actually saw this. Started off as shadowy smoke and it morphed into the apparition of a little girl. So some of these are human spirits. There are others that are interdimensional beings. There are some that are extraterrestrials, which is a little bit of what we were talking about the other night on Ancient Aliens. There are possibilities of them being astral projections, light beings, time slips where we're actually getting a glimpse of something at another point in time, and we're just getting kind of a bit of a resonance of something
Yeah,
that's there.
yeah, a shadow of what's there, basically. Sure.
Yeah, well, there's one person's account that's kind of interesting that I just recently added into the second edition of A Walk in the Shadows, where you know somebody we get like a lot of doppelganger questions or doppelganger shadow people, that sort of thing, and I actually think like a real doppelganger is not really the whole evil twin thing, but more of some sort of time slip. And one account actually has this story where this guy, when he was a boy, he had walked into the kitchen and there was a dark hooded figure standing near the kitchen table. And he was young. He took off running because he was frightened. Years later, he's in the kitchen. He's making a sandwich at the kitchen table. He has a hoodie on. He looks over in the doorway, and there is this small, shadowy child that's standing there. And it dawns on him like, oh my gosh, I'm actually looking at myself when I was a child. And when I was a child, I was looking at myself in the future. But
Oh wow,
both times it came off as this shadowy form. Yeah.
Holy cow!
very interesting. That's cool.
Yeah. Um. So yeah. So I don't know if you've noticed, I've been having some trouble with my connection. I've been popping in and out. I apologize for that, everybody. I don't know why I didn't have that issue last night, but evidently tonight is a different night. So um, you just keep going. I wanted to ask you about um, the Alaskan Triangle. Well, how did you come across that? How did that kind of fall into your lap where you
Yeah.
were?
Well, yeah, it kind of helped that I spent 3 years there during the early to mid
Okay.
90s when I was a part of the U.S. Air Force. So,
Oh, okay.
but what's funny about that is when they approached me about the television show, they didn't know that about me yet. They had encountered one of my videos on my Haunted Road Media YouTube channel about portals, and they were looking for somebody to talk about vortex energy portals, that sort of thing that goes on there up in Alaska. And
Mhm.
so we got to talking about that, just general portal activity of vortices, that sort of thing, ley lines and all of that. And they started asking me, well, do you know anything about that activity happening in Alaska? And so I was like, oh, okay, you're referring to like the Alaska Triangle. And so I started talking about the time
Okay.
that I spent up there. So it's just a real natural fit to be a
Right,
part of that.
right. Yeah, I discovered that about probably last year, and I had watched that show and loved it. I mean, I was like, that was just things I didn't even know, and I didn't even really know there was an Alaskan Triangle. I only know the Bermuda Triangle. So, I guess.
Yeah, there's
Just
actually
kinda,
a lot of these. Yeah, there's actually a lot of these areas around the
and
world.
I, and
Everybody
I
knows
learned that
Bermuda.
later on.
Mhm.
Yeah, I learned that later
Yeah.
on too, that there
So can
were.
you kind of compare and contrast the Alaska Triangle with the Bermuda one? Are they similar? Are they different? Same idea,
Well,
just different place.
yeah, I mean they're different in the fact that most of the Alaska Triangle is over land and most of the Bermuda Triangle is over water. There's
Fair
probably more
enough.
similarities between the Bermuda Triangle and the Dragon Triangle off of Japan. But you
Okay.
have a lot of similar events that happen there where you have missing planes, missing ships, missing people, a lot of paranormal supernatural activity, heightened UFO uh, uh,
Sure.
accounts and things like that. So, those are the
Mhm.
type of things that you experience more of in these areas. And with Alaska, another element that you're contending with up there is the land is extremely volatile. So you have
Mhm.
a lot more earthquakes up there. There's volcanic activity up there. The Earth's magnetic shield up there is thinner, and we get the aurora borealis and things like
Yeah,
that
those
up
are
there.
cool.
So, oh yeah, very very cool. Of course, the best time to watch that stuff is dead of winter when it's -30 below, but they're
Yeah, the
very very
farthest
cool.
I've been up is Hudson Bay. I've seen the
Mhm.
aurora borealis from Hudson Bay in Canada.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he talked about, have you had, while you were doing that show, I mean, did you have any experiences that you couldn't explain that affected you personally, or?
Yeah, I mean, and you can see it on the show because they only had me up there for a day, and we spent the whole day on the side of the mountain,
Mhm.
flat top mountain outside of Anchorage, which made for a long day.
Right,
We should
right,
have split it up into two,
right.
but yeah, so it was really a shot in the dark approach. Again, they wanted me to talk about portals, vortices, and that type of activity. So what they wanted me to do was walk around up there with dowsing rods and an EMF meter to see if I could actually detect any of that type of activity. And didn't really get a whole lot off the EMF detector, but the dowsing rods were a different story.
Hmm.
And I know a lot of people in the paranormal community kind of maybe roll their eyes a bit at dowsing rods, and really only because of the fact that if you're doing like a YouTube video or something like that, somebody could fake it.
Oh,
But
of
Mhm,
course.
mhm.
but the rods are something that people have been using for millennia, and even
Right,
today,
right.
surveyors and people use it to find like pipes in the ground and things like that. Um, so I'm up there with the dowsing rods, and there was this one part that I kept walking across as I was walking across the face of the mountain, where the one rod it was the left hand rod would turn inward. The one on the right in my right hand stayed straight, but the one on the left would turn inward. And then as I walked out of this area, it would straighten back out. And I could repeat this every time I walked through it. So okay,
Wow.
so this spot is active. So um, then I decided to change direction, and instead of across the face of it, I was going up and down, and that rod stayed steady, turned in while I walked up and down. So it's like, okay, there is a line that I am actually drawing from the top of the mountain down to Anchorage as I'm doing this. So it's like I had discovered one of what we would call a telluric current, or some people say a ley
A
line,
ley
but
line.
a,
Is
yeah,
that a ley line?
Yeah.
a ley line. A ley line is the lining up of the geographic locations that,
Locations, yeah.
like pyramids, standing stones, things like that, that are
Sure.
built on top of the
I
telluric
just wonder if
currents.
it
Yeah.
coincided with one, a popular one. Just
Now I wouldn't say with a popular one, and in Alaska, you don't find like the classical quote unquote ley lines because they didn't really build. We don't have
there's
ancient
nothing there.
temples and
Yeah.
things like that up there.
Wilderness.
So unless it's hidden under the ice somewhere, which is totally
Sure.
possible.
Right. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's one place that my wife really loves is Alaska. She really wants to go up there,
I'd like to go there.
and yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Right. Oh,
Go
yeah.
during
I
the summer
mean,
when it's a little warmer.
yeah.
Well,
Right. Yeah.
well, we're from
Because you could
Michigan.
find
So,
snow.
yeah, we're from Michigan. We're tough.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
Cleveland, Ohio area. It's not
Yeah.
a problem for me.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
So no, I watched the episode on the History Channel with talking about Michelle LeBaron.
Mhm.
She had that experience there, and we've had her on the show, and she's a fantastic person, and we love talking with her. Now, with that, speaking of like the Washoe Club in Virginia City, have you ever been there?
I have not been to the Washoe Club, so
Okay.
I've interviewed Michelle a couple of times on on my show, Edge of the Rabbit Hole. I've been friends with her for some years now. And so, because for my book, I was looking for stories about, hat wearing entities, hers was fascinating. So I just basically took a transcript from one of our interviews with her and put that in the book, which, she was, very happy and thankful and, all that. But when I was talking with the producers of Ancient Aliens, that was one that they really liked. So it's like, all right, well, we'll talk about it. And what was interesting is when they filmed my interview, they hadn't talked to Michelle yet to, get her permission and all that stuff. So when I had to talk about her in my interview, I was saying, woman I interviewed, this woman, like that sort of thing. So when it came off on the show, I was like,
yeah, it still worked. I mean, it still.
Oh yeah, it was fine.
It was cool. But now I wonder if like History Channel, are they kind of getting into a little bit of some of that like paranormal stuff that you know of, or do you think it's just?
I wouldn't say so much paranormal, but alternative history. Certainly that's been a forte of theirs for a while. They've had Ancient Aliens running on there. They call this season 18, which is kind of interesting because when we were doing the filming, they were calling it season 14. But I guess a couple of the seasons are where they're doing like top 10 episodes, or they took some older filmed episodes that didn't air before and kind of tossed them in there. So, but they've been going on since I want to say 2006, something like that. It's been on a long time.
Yeah, I've been watching that on the History Channel for a long time. I mean,
it's been a favorite of mine. Yeah. So when they,
I bet you were pretty excited when you got the call.
Oh, yeah.
I would have been. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I'm on that.
Yeah, it's like, this is a show I've been wanting to get on for a while. But they've had other shows on there like Hunting Hitler. Which is the whole idea of Hitler, making his way to South America after World War II, which I think happened.
I do too.
I remember.
I don't have any doubt with that. No.
Yeah, I remember being a kid in the 80s, and there were rumors about that happening, and just the idea that Adolf Hitler was actually, possibly still alive at that time was kind of a little scary. He'd be long since dead now, but back then that possibility was out there.
I think didn't Josh Gates. Unexplored Unknown or something, I think it was called, that he did a special when he went down to Venezuela or something like that, where he found a house that was supposedly where Hitler lived, and it was crazy. I mean, they found like old like German coin down there, and so it's not that far.
One of those. It's not, because they whether or not Hitler was there was definitely a strong Nazi presence in South America. So they can find that stuff all over the place. The question is just where exactly was Hitler. So they haven't quite nailed that down. But the show, like Hunting Hitler, was fascinating in the different possibilities of where he could have ended up, what his escape route may have been. I haven't seen that episode of Expedition Unknown with Josh Gates, but History Channel's been doing alternative history like that for a while. And they also do The Curse of Oak Island, which I love that show.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I've seen that show. I don't watch TV much, but I've seen a few episodes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, History Channel has got quite a few different good shows, and I love the History Channel. Anything about the history of anything. I mean, especially talking about like World War II and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just, it's kind of like just drilled to the TV, because the information is just stuff that I have always been kind of fascinated about, and having, family members in the military being in World War II and beyond that. And so it's just, it's kind of a personal thing for me, and, but yeah, that's
one show I wish they would have kept on there. Ran for 2 seasons. They canceled it only because that they were going away from their scripted television type shows. Was Project Blue Book. That was a great show. Then there's a petition out there to kind of try to bring it back.
Are you leading that, Mike? Are you leading?
I'm not leading it, but I've signed it, and I have forwarded the links, because the producers are just everybody's interested in continuing on the show. They just need to find a network to pick it up. And it was History Channel's. It was one of their highest viewed shows at the time that they canceled it. It was just we're going away from scripted shows and just staying with kind of the more reality sort of thing. So
Yeah, I think they could probably get away with doing a mix of both. I think that
yeah, I think
very
so.
easily. But yeah, that's too bad. But so yeah, have there been any investigations, like paranormal investigations, you've been on recently, or what was the last one you did?
What was the last one I did? It would have been sometime last year because I haven't done any yet this year. It's probably the USS Salem. We did as part of Mass Paracon back in September. No, okay, yeah, that was back in September. But out in Las Cruces, we were at the we were at the old jail there. It actually would have been Vulture City then, because Vulture City was after Las Cruces. So yeah.
Okay. All right.
That was the last time I saw Michelle. At Vulture City.
Yeah. Shane's got a good story about a boat, don't you, Shane?
Oh yeah. So I got several stories about boats, but anyways, we did the LST 393 in the Muskegon, Michigan harbor. It was a boat that was actually out there on D-Day in Normandy, and it dropped troops at the beginning of the World War II there. And the cool thing we had found is I was up in the map room and navigational area. They also have the radio room up there. And so me being a ham radio operator had realized that they still had their antennas up from the original, ship. And so I went out to my car, grabbed my ham radio, came in, hooked into that antenna on the ship. And at first nothing happened, just, normal maritime traffic, noise, whatever happens normally. And then we started getting a storm coming in off the lake. And of course, you had been speaking about the energies and the vortex kind of things, or time shifts. So basically what would happen is pretty much every time that you would get a lightning strike out over the lake, and you'd see the lightning go and you hear the thunder, then all of a sudden you'd start getting these old time preachers voice coming in there from the 1940s. He's like, God is our savior, all this kind of stuff. And then it would fade right away to nothing, to white noise again. And then it would come in again. You'd see the lightning, and then you'd be like, emergency, we've been struck, kind of a thing. And then it would fade off. And it did this for probably pushing close to an hour as the storm went through, and then it just faded off to nothing. So it was
that's pretty interesting.
The energy from the lightning had brought the time shift and repeated the audio that was in the ship, because I did a little research and come to find out a lot of times America would transmit out to the Atlantic Ocean and over there, the sermons and stuff to keep the sailor morale up, et cetera, for the troops on the ships. And so it was common to have a preacher doing that. So the fact that it moved, however many years from the 1940s, and actually came back out again in the early, 2020s was pretty amazing.
Yeah. And you had that audio.
I have the audio. Yes.
Anytime
you guys want to hear it, I got it because it was a computer that was recording it, and the computer was interfaced with that radio. So yeah, I have the original audio, and it's very clear. I mean, it's not one of those, you have to ask people, what do you think you heard? It's like, no, this is clear.
Yeah, it's clear. Yeah.
It's 100%. Right. Everybody would say the same thing if you let them listen to it. So there is something to the time shift thing. I don't know how it works. I try to get the physics in my mind because I'm a science guy, and I draw blanks on every possible avenue for it to occur, but somehow it did. So you have to go with it, I guess.
Yeah, it's and that's a great question. How does it work? And I think it has to do with personal resonance, vibration, energy, all of that. And these locations that tend to have these different time shifts, like the Conjuring House, for example.
Sure. Uh-oh. Glitch break.
Okay. Are we back?
Yep, you're back.
Oh, you're back.
Okay. But the Conjuring House has reported time slips there where the Perron family at times would see people running around in 1800s clothing, which was absolutely fascinating. And if you take a look at the basement, the way that the house is constructed, they have a room that's called the well room, and it's an open well that currently has water in it. The walls of that room are made of limestone, and they're capped with granite blocks. So it's
Okay.
like a perfect little power chamber, and a lot of the activity in that house happens straight from atop that room. So the next room up, the parlor, is where they were observing the major time slip where Andrea and Carolyn had actually seen the family sitting down there at the dining room table, and they actually turned and looked at Carolyn and Andrea like, would you look at that, as if they were the ghosts. So some kind of time slip going on there. And what is it that kicked it off? It was the catalyst. That's the big question. But to me, I have no doubt that the energy was kind of emanating from down there in the well room. And what was the exact trigger or frequency it had to hit?
Object.
Yeah,
because I've been a ham radio operator for 25 years, and I've ran my radios through storms hundreds of times over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Never have I heard something that wasn't supposed to be there, except when I was physically connecting my radio to the ship's original antenna system, and I was tuned to the original frequencies that were up on the charts on the wall from the 1943 or whatever, whenever it was, and it was like, I'd never experienced that in all my years and years and years of ham radio. To have that one night, that one time, it had to have been something on the ship that was still holding the energy or causing the time slip, or who knows. But it was very clear, very definite, and I have no explanation. So
yeah. So I'm talking about the Conjuring house. I kind of get that feeling that I've never been there, but my computer's really starting to irritate me.
It's all right.
Talking about that, that's I don't think that is, how do I say this? That house, Hollywood makes it look pretty bad, and I don't think it is. Let's put it that way. You know what I mean?
Hollywood didn't even tell the right story. So
right. I mean, you know what I mean?
Right
so yeah. So I mean, it's just kind of like there's a lot of people that really love that house, and all this stuff, and I would like to visit it sometime, but it's just the way that Hollywood and even the media, they've just distorted the facts of certain places just for a view or a positive rating or something like that. It's really getting tiresome, and it's especially in the paranormal field. I mean, it's rampant everywhere, and so, but can you talk a little bit about your experience with that house? I mean, with that,
what the real story is.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the real story is the haunting lasted. I mean, they were there for 10 years, and the haunting was still going on when they left. And it's, it wasn't, it wasn't this, Bathsheba witch, demon thing.
Right.
And they'd seen a lot of things there over the years. One of the more famous ghosts there is Manny, who, and they don't even know, and that's just the name the girls gave him. It's not his real name or anything. They've seen Native American spirits there. They've seen shadows. They've seen the rolling black smoke and things like that there. So a lot of things have happened there over the years. The one thing that was probably correctly depicted, Carolyn did see one time a woman hovering over her. So that's probably like the one thing that was accurate. But the whole thing with Bathsheba, even with the lore that's around that area of the country where they say that she murdered a baby with a needle. There's actually no proof for even that part of it. Mm-hmm. So it's what really happened there is very, very different from Hollywood. All of that said, I mean, my experience is I spent the day there. We did a lot of filming. I was interviewing Carl and Keith Johnson, Elise Carlson, who's a local historian, Corey Heinzen, who currently owns the house, to get stories, history, things that have happened there over the years. And my significant experience was in what had been Andrea's room, and I was just interviewing Keith, and all of a sudden, by the one corner of the room, by the one bed, I started getting extremely, extremely lightheaded. Had to hand Keith the camera, and I had to sit down. Hadn't told that story when I talked to Andrea afterward. I hadn't told her that story yet, and she started telling me things that would happen in that corner of the room. That's actually one of the places where they would see the shadow smoke. There's also an interesting photo that I have where there's some sort of strange shift going on within the photo, in which everything in the foreground is clear. I'm taking the photo from the middle room. For those that have watched my Shadow Dimension docuseries, or they're familiar with this photo, everything in the foreground in the middle bedroom is completely fine, completely clear. But once you get toward the door between the rooms, and there's actually an interior window, because it used to be an exterior one, but they added onto the house, so it's an interior window. Everything starts to shift to the right, and in the other room there's an exterior window that would be behind the wall as you're looking from that middle room, but somehow, some way, it is actually shifted into the frame as you're looking through the door. And It's like, how in the world can I see a window that shouldn't even be in this picture? But I'm seeing the full window right there. It's really bizarre. So and given the energy that I had felt in that room, given that straight below again you have that well room that's how all that energy is rising up from there. Sure. I think that there was some sort of maybe interdimensional phasing or something like that going on there at that time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'd love to get some instruments in that place.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, sure. I'm just, I mean,
yeah, you would love it.
Yeah. Your instruments would probably be beneficial in there. Do you have a certain place that you like to go to do research? Do you have some place that you have been researching for a long time and that you would like to go to?
I mean, I have a couple of favorites. Mineral Springs Hotel in Alton, Illinois is always one of those at the top of the list. I've done a lot of research there. I had a lot of experiences there. It's where we saw the shadow smoke morph into the apparition of a little girl. In fact, there was a lightning storm that night.
So there is a tie somehow.
Yeah. There's definitely I absolutely agree with the tie-in to lightning, because I've had other investigations where nothing going on. We leave to go get a snack, and then storm blows through, and we go back, and everything is just suddenly everything's lighting up. We're getting balls of light and just all kinds of crazy stuff. So, but Mineral Springs, very historic. Hotel, over 100 years old there along the Mississippi River. You have the old mineral spring that is still there in the basement. You have the old abandoned pool, and it's like every level, it's like five levels in the old sub basement. And every level has its own energy. Several spirits running around throughout there, and it's like some areas are a lot more creepy than others, and there's just so much going on there. So I love going there, and I've become friends with some of the spirits there.
Sure. Yeah, Jay does that.
Yeah.
I don't get people that won't talk to me.
Yeah, I know. I'm not too far from there. I'm probably maybe 5 hours, 4.5, 5 hours from there, because I live in Wisconsin. So.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So I'm about an hour north of Chicago. So.
Gotcha.
But
well, we have the event coming up here in April, Janesville, Wisconsin. So
you do?
Come out. What event is that?
Yeah,
it is the what is it, Metaphysical and Paranormal Convention. I can get you the information, but it's in Janesville, Wisconsin.
Please do,
April 9th through the 10th.
That's like 40 minutes from my house.
Okay, great.
Yeah, because I live in Lake Geneva, so I'm right close to the border, and I'm kind of in the.
It's about maybe 3 hours from my place. Not so bad.
Yeah. Actually, let me bring that up. I'll just have my website on in the background over here. I can just bring that up real quick and tell you exactly what that is. So let me get to my events page, and now it's going to take a moment to load, of course.
See?
That's normal.
That's what happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, well, by the end of the show, I'll have the information for you.
Okay.
Sure. No
All right,
problem.
sweet. So yeah, so speaking of Wisconsin, is there any place that you have investigated or researched in Wisconsin?
Honestly, I haven't done a lot of research or investigating in Wisconsin. So I've been there, but
Okay.
for vacation, like Wisconsin Dells, and
Yeah, there's
when I was a kid, we did the
We
Miller
went there
Brewery
for the
Factory.
cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
you
a
go there
nice-
for the cheese, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a nice spirited hotel and called the Baraboo Inn in the Dells.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I published Amelia Cotter's book on the Baraboo Inn.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Then you got the Pfister in Milwaukee, which
Mhm.
that is a glorious hotel. I mean, that's just some of the stories that come out of there are pretty crazy. But even even Michigan has quite a few. So
Michigan certainly does. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the Metaphysical Paranormal Expo, Janesville, Wisconsin, April 9th through 10th.
Oh, sweet! I'll have to mark that on my calendar.
All right.
Right on. Oh, that's good to know. So yeah, speaking of also Alton, Illinois, have you been to Galena, Illinois?
I have not. That's a little more toward the northern part of the state.
A little bit northern. You're right. Closer to the border.
I've been invited to Galena, but
you should go.
I forget what was going on that weekend that I couldn't make it.
Right. That's like stepping back in time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just the buildings are just amazing. I mean, it's and a lot of activity. I went there with my wife once, and it was walked into one place, and it was just the energy in there was just incredible. And I had a lot of people contact me about that, but then the COVID hit and kind of ruins everything. So,
yeah, it cramped it.
Yeah, COVID kind of did. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a couple hotels there that are really cool. So yeah, I would suggest if you ever get the opportunity to do that. It's a beautiful area too. So there's stuff in Missouri too. I mean, I like Missouri. I like all the Midwest haunts basically. I mean, there's just so many personal type. I mean, it's hard to describe. I mean, I've never been on the East Coast. I've been on the West Coast.
Come on out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, Shane's going to be on the West Coast. What, in April?
Well, I'll be in Hinsdale House in April. Yeah. It's in New York.
Oh, okay, there you go. Yeah, Hinsdale's great.
Yep.
Yeah, we're doing some actual research, university style research there. We're going to do some psych experiments. We're going to do some data logging. We're going to do some pretty heavy duty structured, with control groups and all kinds of that studies. So it's not like your average, ghost hunters in there just looking for noises and thrills. We're going to try to actually collect some data, and we're going to try to do some standardized testing to try to see if we can get spirits to answer psychology kind of questions.
Oh, wow.
Kind of like what a psychiatrist would put or a psychologist would put to a patient.
Yeah.
We're going to try to get them to do that. And then because these are studies that have been designed for university, for personality studies, et cetera, the idea is to see if they can score better than chance, to find out, if we got entities, what type they are, stuff like that. And of course, we'll be logging all kinds of data and statistics, and we're going to write a paper, most likely, maybe even a book. So it'll be a little more than the average investigation. So
yeah, you may find more going on there with the land than in the house.
That's very good thing to know, because we'll do a site survey, of course, with the logging equipment, but and so we're
a lot of people report activity out there in the woods behind the house. I've experienced a lot more outside than inside, and there's a definitive energy difference between as you move away from the house and head into the woods. We talked about the dowsing rods earlier.
Sure.
And so walking from the house through the backyard, heading toward the woods. Rods are out straight, and I would consistently hit this one spot as we start nearing the path that goes up into the woods, and all of a sudden the rods would do a 180 and start pointing back toward the house
Oh wow.
every time.
They're like,
Yep.
yeah, turn around, buddy. You're in the wrong spot.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a definite energy shift there, and like I said, a lot of people report different things in the woods there. So it'd be interesting what you discover.
Yeah. So what we'll probably do then, if that's the case, is we will like set the recording equipment and then move it like 10 feet each time.
Mhm.
Keep going down that path you're talking about or towards that. And then logging, get like 10 minutes of log for each 10 feet or
spot,
however,
Mhm.
and so we can get a plot of the energy changes and see if there's a fault line there or something where, the energy is a cutoff or
Yeah.
maybe one side of a veil to another side of, or whatever's happening.
Mhm.
We're recording over 20 some parameters every second.
Great.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if it's hiding out there and it can be and it's in this side of the veil's physics, those sensors will find it.
Mhm.
So
Right.
Very cool.
So that leads me to my question to you, Mike. Do you think that there would be considered to be more hauntings of land than it would be at certain locations?
It really depends on the location. So I believe a lot of hauntings sure are tied to the land. You have that older energy that's been
Like
trapped there
Gettysburg.
for a long, long time. Yeah,
Mhm.
like Gettysburg.
It's all land.
Battlefields are certainly primed for that. But then, like Shane was saying, I think a lot of times you have energy trapped within these objects. You might get more of like a residual haunt. You get like a stone tape effect going on, that sort of thing. So
Mhm.
it just depends on the location.
Right. And that leads me to Gettysburg. What do you think of Gettysburg?
It's been a while since I've been to Gettysburg, but yeah, I mean, you go there and you feel that, and when you're out on the battlefields, I'll say this, you feel that despair. You feel the heaviness of the battles. When you start getting to more of the little downtown strip and all that, then it's all commercialized and what have you. So
Right,
that's definitely a different feel there. Yeah.
Right. That's one of the things that I'm hoping to go to at the Gettysburg Bash this year. So
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
yeah, I have ancestors on both sides that fought in Civil War. So
Mhm.
yeah, I've always wanted to go there. I just feel that I've always been drawn to there. It's just just never did it, and so I think I'm going to start planning to do that because the stories that I've heard from people that love Gettysburg, talk so highly of it and how emotional it is. It's just like a big. Now, would you consider like a time shift, multiple ones there, or just one or two, or?
Yeah, a lot of people report seeing, apparitions of soldiers or entire
Mhm.
company formations and things like that, and they'll go back, to the visitor center and say, that was a great reenactment you guys had out there today. And they're like, we didn't have any reenactments. So,
That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
yes. So there's a lot going on there for sure. Yeah.
hmm Yeah, there was one story that I read years ago about a guy that was visiting a friend of his, and he was staying at one of the inns there, and he woke up to having three guys dressed in Confederate outfits that were basically calling him captain or sergeant or something, and what do we do now type thing, and he was like in bed sleeping. He's like, um, yeah, just even something like that to happen. I mean, has got to just
Yeah.
be, mind blowing in itself. But another girl was driving her little pickup through Gettysburg, and
Uh-oh.
Did we lose him again?
Yeah, he'll be back.
All right. But yeah, one of the things about Gettysburg is you're not supposed to be out there at night. So, but people try to go to the edge and try to push it as much as they can. And so I've seen, some interesting video where it looks like across the battlefield you're seeing this gunfire, and you can hear the little pop 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 pops.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's really
Mhm.
interesting. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you had. Let's go
Um,
back to the. Oh, do you have more, Jay?
I wonder if being. Go ahead.
All right, Sam. So I was just gonna run back to the Alaska Triangle thing, just kind of
Mhm.
quickly.
Yeah,
You
I
had
did
asked
actually. There
about
was
UFOs.
a.
You're both talking over each other.
Yeah, he's stuck. So
He's
you
stuck
had hinted
again.
about the UFOs. You said that they. Do you know of any like kind of specific, things that are, is there specific incidents with UFOs in the triangle or?
Yeah, there have been several specific incidents. Kodiak Island
Okay.
gets a lot of reports and sightings, and they go all the way back to World War II. The most significant one is
Sure.
the Japanese Airlines one from 1986, in
Yeah, I'll go
which
and research these.
yeah,
I'm always
and
curious, and I've heard them talk about it with the Bermuda Triangle and the thing
mhm.
in Egypt and a few of those others, but I was just wondering, and you had mentioned the UFO. I was just thinking, I wonder if there is any special, ones, noteworthy ones. So
Yeah,
good to know.
yeah. Research the Japanese Airlines one from
Yeah, I
1986.
just
That's
made a
the
note
most
for that.
significant one. Yeah.
Very excellent.
Great. How do you feel about aliens, Mike?
They exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. So,
there's other people. There's people that can say, I believe in them, or I kind of believe them, or it's just I don't know.
well, I mean, it's to me, it's foolish to believe that there's all this universe that's out there, and we're the only life forms. No,
Yeah,
there
that's
are
my
other life
exact
forms that are
thought.
out there.
The statistics
Um,
say
Yeah.
they have to be there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the universe is almost 14 billion years old. We've only been around for 4.5 billion, so that means other life forms and civilizations have a much greater head start on us
Absolutely.
to get to becoming a spacefaring civilization. So yeah, they're out
Mhm.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the only time that I ever thought I saw one was probably in the last year, actually, and that was something that you kind of take with a grain of salt. But the way I saw it, it didn't look like a plane, and it didn't look like a helicopter, and it didn't, you know what I mean? So I mean, it just was like, and it was low
And
enough
now
that
he
I,
misses time all the time. He's always missing time.
yeah, oh yeah, I've
Well,
done
yeah,
that.
there you go.
I've done
Missing
that
time.
I'm
too.
sure they got him.
Yeah. I was going
Yep.
from in the middle of Nebraska, not Nebraska, Kansas, and there was a big electrical storm coming through, and I looked down. I was doing 55 on this 2-lane blacktop, and it was getting to be nighttime, and we just went into it, and the last thing I knew, we lost an hour, and I was doing 90.
Wow.
So yeah. So
Yeah, those
that
Kansas
that was,
aliens are known for that. No.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it was weird too, because the fact that right after that in our car, our alternator was fried,
Oh
Wow.
wow. Okay.
and
Yeah.
there was nothing wrong with the car.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so we got
That's
stuck in a 1-horse town for a day, and that was like, I thought we like went into some back in time or something. It was weird, but
So,
yeah.
Mike,
So
have you had your own, encounter with any type of UFOs, or, I mean, maybe while you're
I've
filming,
seen
or
I've seen one UFO. This was maybe about 4 years ago, and I was driving through Missouri, headed west. It's at night, so it's always the Midwest, right?
yeah,
yeah.
And yeah, so I'm just driving down the highway, and off on would have been the other side of the highway, I see these two rectangular red lights that are just kind of there in the air, but parallel to the highway, kind of almost, I guess, I don't know if they were traveling along it or whatever they were
sure,
doing, or shadowing it maybe. But as I'm looking over there, like, what in the world are those lights in the air? All of a sudden, poof, they took right off. And
All
I'm just
right.
like,
Well, I mean, that'd be it.
oh, okay. I think I just saw a UFO. So,
Right.
nothing
Wow.
glamorous, no abduction. It was just, all
Yeah.
right, there we go. Cool.
Have you ever talked to anybody that says that they've been abducted?
Yeah, I mean, I've interviewed several people on my show that
Okay.
believe that
Sure.
they've been abducted, they've had experiments run on them, all that sort of thing. I don't believe it's happened to me, but yeah, I've talked to people where that's happened to, and there's actually some interesting correlations and parallel between some of the abduction stories and people who have had the nighttime shadow person experiences where they have the sleep paralysis and all that. So I'm
Hmm.
fascinated by those stories because of course, in my research, trying to find those parallels and what are the differences, what things are similar,
Sure.
all that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I've never met anybody that's been abducted, but I mean, I've never even talked to anybody. So I was just kind of curious to see what they had. Their stories were similar to.
Yeah. And I had a friend that had, claims to have had an abduction when she was in her late teens, right from her house, so I guess they can happen. I mean, she was, pretty much paralyzed, and then, and it was raining outdoors, and then when she woke up in the morning, her blankets and bed and everything were wet, and like she'd been outside, her clothes were wet, but she don't remember anything of what happened other than she saw some lights come in the window, then she couldn't move, and then she saw some shapes come towards her, and then she wakes up in the morning and her clothes are soaked, her bed's wet, like she'd been outside, but she hadn't been outside.
Yeah.
So
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So what about
Yeah.
so what about oh, some abductees talk about getting like little small implants.
Hmm.
Do you know anything about
Right.
that? Like they get like implants in their wrist or in their hand or something like that. Um,
Various parts of the body.
yeah,
Yeah. And it's interesting seeing some of those X-rays and there are doctors that have come forward and confirmed, yeah, that it was some sort of implant that was in there. It's not part of the body. And so those stories are interesting because you start wondering, okay, why are they implanted? What is it that, is it just um, for information? Are they just trying to,
right.
Yeah,
gain
I picture
information,
it
do
more like
research,
when we tag.
or is it mind control sort of thing?
Yeah, I picture it more like we tag animals when we catch them in the wild, put a GPS tracker on them and let them go. I kind of picture them doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's what I believe too. I think most often, because like you said, when we do that to animals, or if we were to visit another and we're trying to research and investigate and learn about whatever planet that may have life on it, we're going to be doing similar things ourselves.
Oh
Mhm,
yeah, of
So,
course.
mhm.
a lot of these UFOs may just be drones and probes, just researching the planet and discovering what's here.
Sure.
Because we would do the same exact thing. I mean, we do it now. We've done that with Mars and other planets. We have
Absolutely.
satellites orbiting and flying by and things like that. So we already do it.
Mhm, mhm.
Excellent.
Um, I wanted to ask you about you talk about electromagnetic energy. Do you think that like some of these towers, that 5G towers, are a negative for us? That they're building all these towers? Do you think it's going to start affecting people in general?
Um, yeah, that's a tough question to answer. I don't necessarily know like the 5G towers, but you look at something like HARP up there in
Yep,
Alaska.
I know that.
And a lot of people believed in the whole, they're changing the weather and things like that. Um, and they may have been, they did admit to, we created an artificial aurora in the atmosphere with this thing. So,
Correct, and that's very
they
common
were,
physics science. I mean,
yeah,
some ham radio people can even do that if they have a big enough setup.
yeah. And they're talking about exciting the electrons and things like
Yep,
that. So that's,
correct.
it's a scary thought for a lot of people. And okay, so you're a ham radio operator. You have equipment that can you can move it, right?
Yep,
You can be mobile with it. So think I mean, HARP was developed 30 years ago now.
sure.
So by now we should have been able to miniaturize whatever that technology is. So think
Pretty
about
much.
a miniature heart unit running around now in a van. I mean,
Could
probably,
happen.
yeah,
I mean, it's physically possible.
yeah.
Yeah. So also to answer Jay's question, I'm going to say it probably won't affect people very much unless they live really, really, really close to it, because you have the whole inverse square law thing. So power goes down by the square of the distance. So if you're even just a few feet away, you're probably good to go. Now, if you literally had one of the antennas in your living room doing high powered 5G, might not be good. But what I'm saying is,
Right.
even if it's on the same building that you live in,
Yeah.
by the time it gets attenuated by the building structure, plus, more than 20 feet from the thing, the signals are going to be too weak to have any influence on
Right.
human
And see, and
life
that's
or
there's
etc.
been so many like conspiracy theories of all this stuff. And so I kind of wanted to get other people's opinions like yours and Mike's, and I mean, that's so
Yeah,
I was
I would call bunk
curious.
to it most of the time.
Yeah.
Well, Tesla was trying to turn in his idea of, free energy, he wanted to turn the whole planet into one gigantic electronic dynamo. So
Yeah,
would
and
that
that
have fried
might
us?
cause problems. And that's enough right there. That, I mean, not only would it take, nearly unlimited amounts of power to do it, but it wouldn't be good for human life or any other life actually at that power level.
I wonder if he actually would have to, he always kind of, from what I understand, he always kind of thought of the how he could do things with electricity and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Well, and I have a Tesla coil of my own in my barn, and it'll throw 2-foot electric arcs into the air. But as long as you don't physically touch them, it doesn't have any effect on the body. So,
right.
but anyway, I would not be afraid of them,
No.
So,
And then I asked you to make me something, didn't I, from Tesla? What was it? The ghost box?
oh yeah, we already did that a while ago. So,
Yeah. Yeah. His theory on spirits, that was pretty cool.
yeah, he was out there a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he believed that when he was younger, he was astral projecting.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I read that in a book. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was a piece of work, but
Cool.
so God, I didn't. This hours kind of flew by, even with all problems.
Goes by quick.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be interesting to see how this all came through. But I wanted to say, Mike, if you want to throw out where people can find you or see you, and what you got coming up, and shout out.
Yeah, sure. So you can find me MikeRicksecker.com. You can also visit my online learning portal, the connecteduniverseportal.com. Also check out my series, my docu-series, The Shadow Dimension, which is running free on Tubi right now. So, as far as things that,
So
as far as things going on, we mentioned the Metaphysical Paranormal Expo, Janesville, Wisconsin, April 9th through 10th. May 20 through 22nd is Parapsychon, Mansfield, Ohio. I also have the Ireland tour. It would, just found out today, Ireland has relaxed their travel restrictions. So no more travel restrictions, actually. So you don't need a negative test. You don't need a vaccination card. You don't need to fill out any forms. It's just come to Ireland. So, so those that were hesitant about joining up for the tour, you can come on board. We have, I think, like 4 tickets left for that. And then we're going to have some announcements soon here about tours for next year. So we have an Egypt tour next February. And then we're looking at July 2023 in Alaska Triangle cruise.
Oh, wow.
Very cool.
Right, you got a lot going on. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
I'd love to go to Ireland. That'd be awesome.
I'd love to go to Egypt. I'll have to borrow Jay's credit card, though.
There you go. It'll be bouncing all the way around the world. Yep. So I want to say thank you to Mike. We really appreciate you coming on, even though with all the technical difficulties and all this, but it was fun. Very, down to earth gentleman here, and it's just it's really been awesome, and I'm thankful that you agreed to come on the show. And hopefully, yeah, most definitely we'll be checking out the Janesville Expo.
Yes, maybe I'll even
Yeah.
venture over there. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Oh yeah.
Have to see when
That'd
my
be
would
great to
window
see you
out.
guys there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Most definitely. Most definitely. So we want to thank everybody for tuning in who did tune in, and we appreciate all your comments. And this show will be up on YouTube probably in the next day or two. So we want to say thank you, everyone, and have a fantastic evening. Bye.
All right. Have a great night, guys.
Thanks.